All right. So, today I am going to be doing some homebrew, making some progress on the Blood Knight class that one of our players is currently playing as. Shout out Balethal one time. And the plan after that is going to be to do some prep or planning for an adventure that I want to say should take somewhere between 3 and 4 sessions. It'll be the first time I am prepping an adventure like that. I have done session prep, of course, and campaign prep, but trying to do something kind of self-contained. And I don't have any broad aspirations for whatever our first bit of work is going to be on prepping an adventure, but I am hopeful that I'll be able to create a good and solid adventure that would work out when, in context of people looking for adventures, and then maybe package together maps for those adventures as something that could be saleable when it comes to our coffee page as a commission type thing, or just something that you get access to for donating a certain amount of time, or a certain amount of money. Anyway, we'll think about that later. Obviously, Isindasor has a bunch of its own rules that I have been slowly adding to, as far as those are concerned. But for now, we're probably not going to concern ourselves too much with this homebrew. I do appreciate Natural Crit. It was sent to me, revealed to me by Luciferius, one of my other players. But I think before I start migrating homebrew from Inside Foundry onto the page there, which is going to be really useful for referencing it when the Foundry stuff is not connected to a server. It's off of my local PC, and I don't always have it running, so our players can't always take a look at their character sheets, or indeed even the homebrew stuff. And so finding an off-site, non-Foundry version of that to host it, and also for sharing it, seems like it would be a good idea. That all being said, we'll work on that later. We don't need to busy ourselves with that on this stream. So let's go ahead and pop open my traits here. I did end up going in through the features list and heavily organizing them. They used to just all be in a mishmash, but now we've got class features including the Blood Knights, and we even have, like, if you go down to racial features, all the orc stuff is in here. I can take the orc prefix off of it because I was using that for organizational purposes. I didn't realize you could make a folder within a folder in Foundry. It's pretty neat. So that's definitely useful. All right, so let's take a look at our Blood Knight class. So Blood Knights, so far we've had a decent amount of combat in the session where the Blood Knight has been active, but we haven't really seen the Blood Knight stuff utilized. You could argue that the main aspects of the class that have been active so far have been the fact that the character in question was able to soak up more damage because of the D12 hit pool, and the fact that he used a two-handed axe, a great axe. So, those are things that you start off with a great axe as part of your starting gear. If you go to details here, it'll show you got a two great sword or any martial melee weapon. So that was a great axe instead, and then two hand axes, and then the explorer's pack and a minor healing potion. And so all of that, I guess the starting equipment and stuff has been used, but really the calling card for the Blood Knight as a class is definitely the blood trance. And so, and the vengeful vortex, right? And so the vengeful vortex as a concept basically just unlocks the ability to use your sin dice for various things. And so every time you get hit, you get a sin dice, and then you can expend those sin dice on your turn to do certain things, right? And so one of those things would be to augment an attack roll, as it says here. And so you roll it, and then you add that to your attack roll. If you have 3 or more sin dice, you can spend all 3 or 4 or however many you got, and it basically gives you the damage roll gets empowered. And then at 2 or more, you can heal, but it's a temporary HP that expires after like a minute. Yeah, after a minute after combat. So it's not the most, it's not like permanent healing, right? And so eventually you will have to rest still, which I think is a neat little touch. What up, Shambler? Yeah, this is not going to be prepped in the context of if you guys eventually do the things that we're planning here, I would modify it from what the baseline is to best suit the campaign, whatever one we end up doing this for. And I think I would go a step farther and say that, like, I don't know that everything that I am putting together in the adventure is really going to still be accurate. Like, it could be one of those things where it's part of the setting, but it was like centuries ago or decades ago, or it's after you guys, right? So it's not exactly one of those things where, like, you're not going to really get spoiled too much. Like, even to the degree that you as a player were looking at, say, like, oh, I remember Pernigo working on this adventure. It's going to be different enough that if you try to, not saying that anybody would, but if somebody were to try to use that information, they would probably end up, like, confusing themselves and maybe actually getting into a bad situation because of that metagaming, because things are just be different, right? So yeah, I'm not worried about anybody. This is open to anybody who wants to pop in and take a look. So, but yeah, we're just kind of going over the Blood Knight. I want to do some more development of the class, and then I want to start working on an outline for an adventure. And I'm thinking that the adventure should carry through 4 sessions. I have to decide if I want the adventure to be something that you would play when you are level 1 or when you are level 3 or whatever, right? And maybe there would be certain things that I would leave hints on as key difficulty scalings that would be something that you could, as a director, as a game master, change up if you wanted to change the level. But it would I would imagine, broadly speaking, I think, like, most adventures are kind of pigeonholed into, or they're described as being low level, mid level, or high level, and then there's epic level, right? Epic level is like 15 to 20, I believe. So it's like every 5 levels is basically a new category. That's what I've heard stuff like that before. And so, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know right now, and again, as mostly an outsider here, still getting my feet wet with this, I would describe the adventure that I want to work on as low level, because that seems the easiest to manipulate. All right. So I don't know if we need to make any modifications to the way that the Blood Knight works with Vengeful Vortex. I guess the one thing I would think about doing is changing or modifying what happens with the attack roll augmentation. Because Ancestral Focus basically lets you augment your attack roll, which I don't know if it's that interesting, because, I mean, it can certainly help, right? I'm not saying it can't help. So it starts off at 1d6, and so you're going to average out to adding a 3 to that roll, that attack roll, and so that can help. But maybe it would be safe to also add that amount to the damage roll. The only thing there is that then you've got Ultimate Vengeance, which is the thing you do when you spend 3 sin dice, and when you're doing that, it's supposed to exclusively empower the damage roll. But I think what we could do is maybe you spend 3 or more sin dice, and you're rolling to, like, basically on a successful attack, you empower the damage roll. I guess that is basically what I'm saying, but I was thinking that maybe it would be more like, you get an extra attack or something. The problem is, the idea behind it being a dice mechanic is that you roll them, and that determines the outcome. And that helps you scale into later levels, because over time, your sin dice goes from 1d6 to 1d8 to 1d10 to 1d12 to eventually 1d20. I think I go all the way up to 1d20. It looks like at level 17, yeah. So part of that is the barbarian scaling. I've piggybacked off of that to set it up for Foundry. Anyway, I think that's fine, and that can be interesting. Although, we could change it from a 1 thing to a 2 thing, and so each sin dice is actually you're rolling 2d6 for every sin dice, but that gets confusing where it's like, I don't know. It no longer sounds correct anyway. So I think we'll leave it as it is. But that was something that I thought about. I was looking at some interesting content that was talking about how if you roll 2d10 or 4d5, then you actually get more numbers clumped up in the middle. Like you are. It's less likely for you to roll like a 20 or a 1. Or I mean, obviously you can't roll a 1 if you're rolling 2d10, but you're less likely to hit 20 and also less likely to hit 2 than you are when you're hitting 20 or 1 with a 1d20. So I thought that was kind of interesting because maybe that would make those critical. You could make those criticals a bit more impactful, either failure or success, but they would also end up being more rare, and so they'd be less likely to swing fights. I don't know. There's some thought process there where if it ever feels too much or whatever, we can tinker with that. But that's just an idea. That was not something I was actively considering. All right. So I think what we probably want to do is we're going to add the damage roll to the first use of the sin dice. But that does mean that we have to think about what we're doing with Ultimate Vengeance, because basically what we're saying there is that with Ultimate Vengeance, like Ultimate Vengeance is just when you hit 3 or more, you can roll Ancestral Focus, but you can roll 3, which you already could do. So like if you have 2 sin dice, you could roll both of them on an attack roll. You're not limited to just rolling 1 just because it says with 1 or more, right? So I think that makes sense. Like I'm looking at this and I'm thinking basically we got to figure out what else is related to Ultimate Vengeance. Maybe it's like maybe on a successful attack you can roll 3D you can roll your 3d6 and you take half of that as healing. But it's not really vengeance. It's more like I'd have to rename it. But that could be kind of interesting where it's like I've hit you and so like the spirits are pleased with my attack, with my combat performance, and they reinvigorate me. You could think about it kind of like that. So I guess we could say something like, for now, I'll just call it Ultimate Grit, and we'll think about maybe a better name later. But I also have to be careful about the level 3 passive that you get called Sanguine Catharsis, which once per long rest has a bonus action. You gain hit points from slaughtering a specific target. If you can gain hit points from this, which let's see, on 3d6, you're looking at 9. So half of that would be rounding down to 4. I guess that's not really that much. If you're averaging out to 4 hits every time you roll this, that's not a crazy amount. So, but this is only once per long rest. So I don't know, maybe this would need to end up being more. Although at the same time, maybe instead of once, it would just be something you can do equal to your proficiency modifier or your proficiency bonus. So it's like at level 1, it's +2, right? And so your proficiency bonus scales up over time. Anyway, that's something that we can maybe think about later. But I think that makes sense. We have modified it to Ultimate Grit. I think we are going to need to go to. Let's see here. We're going to have to go to Oh, that's Narath. Row. I believe on his features, he's still going to have the old one. Yeah. So we have to delete that one and re-add it here. Oh, but it doesn't get listed as Blood Knight feature anymore. Can we maybe go to this? Oh, never mind. I was trying to level him up. Stop. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why it would, because it's keyed as a feature, right? It is keyed as a class feature here, but it wasn't granted to him through the Blood Knight anymore. I don't know. Whatever. That's just a little bit buggy. That's like a product of it being something we're modifying during the campaign. I guess that probably means that we were to go back here and we were to hit edit on this. Oh, I see. Maybe this is how we do it. Basically, it's like created an instanced version of the class, right? And as a result, it ends up being a bit jank. So I guess what we could do is we could pop this into here. Did it work? Did not work. Edit advancement. Oh, it's there now. Yeah. So I'm not really 100% sure why it doesn't update here. Yeah, and it didn't like re-add it or whatever. All right. Well, that's not really that big of a deal. We can work on that a little bit later. So, all right. So this is going back to, this is our actual Blood Knight class. I was just double checking on there. So level 2, you get a feature called Wreathed in Sin, which gives you +2 AC after you've achieved 4 or more Sin dice, which basically is a situation where you become harder to hit after you've sustained enough injury in the middle of a battle. So I think that's fine. I don't think there's really too much else to that. You don't need much else there. Now, if we go to Sanguine Catharsis, we already talked about how the con modifier thing, we probably want to modify this to you can perform this action, this bonus action, a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. All right. So I feel like that's fine. All right. And so we also talk about how at level 3 you get your subclass, which are called Ancestral Sins. And I actually don't really know how that one works, so we might have to redo that one later. But I was hoping to eventually get some work done on a subclass for the Blood Knight. I've seen a decent number of subclasses. I was actually working on a custom version of the Rogue subclass, which is the Assassin. And basically, I just revamped what I think the feature is just called Assassinate by default, and I revamped it to be a little bit more something you can do a bit more often in combat. Basically, once per turn, it's not exactly once per turn because it's based on you need to spend a reaction for it. I don't know if D&D by default lets you get more reactions in as part of like an advancement thing that you can do. But that might be something that we look to do later for assassins. And it basically lets them spend their reaction to take an action when it's the start of somebody's turn. And so that could be an attack, that could be an item action, that could be a disengage, movement, stuff like that. So you can imagine that's pretty powerful. This is something they only get access to at level 3. So I think by then the encounters will be scaled up appropriately. But we shall see. Okay. Well, if we're going to talk about subclasses, the Blood Knight, conceptually speaking, had a number of... Oh yeah, I forgot about this one. Yeah, we already had done stuff like this, so... Okay, so let's go here. I don't know if it copies formatting over, so I usually paste into Notepad just to clear formatting like that. Okay. It doesn't look like it does copy any of that. I forget how you do lists. Is it just that? Okay. And then we have starting items. And that is... Okay. That's some strange formatting they got going on. All right. And so I actually don't know how these are typically written. I suppose we could go back to the... I had the rogue page up. Yeah, basically they've got this list here, which has starting equipment. They also talk about multiclassing. I don't currently comprehend multiclassing very well in 5th edition. It was almost always looked down upon in 3.5, which is the closest I ever came to being proficient when it came to D&D rules or whatever. And the way that they always described it, it was like, you either do this, like either you multiclass without too much of a plan, and as a result, you actually get heavily penalized, or you multiclass and you are like min-maxing to a ridiculous degree and everybody hates you now. That was how it was presented to me, and I never really bothered to investigate it any further than that. So I do admit I have some sort of biases against it. But I also imagine that if you were planning on an open-ended campaign where the goal was to just see how far your characters could go, I think that would be kind of interesting then to almost like cap out the number of levels you could even be in a given class to something less than 20, and then say, that's like gets to a point where if you're going to continue leveling up from there, then multiclassing actually becomes the only way to do so. So once you hit level 10 is a rogue, you have to multiclass into something to get to level 11. That could be kind of interesting, but I also don't know if people would take too kindly to the idea of being gated in that way. Plus, I mean, I almost feel like in 5th edition, with subclasses being a thing, it feels like multiclassing becomes not surplus to requirements, but just really messy on top of a subclass. So I don't know. That's a little bit weird. But basically, what they are mentioning here is that the multiclass for for the multiclass for the Blood Knight, you need either Strength or Constitution above a 13. It looks like, and then so I guess we would just copy this over here and use it as the example. Strength or Constitution 13. All right, so there are no tools. We'll say for armor, you would get medium armor. I guess you'd get both. If you have medium armor proficiencies, I think by default you must have light armor. I think that's how it goes. Yeah, and then just have you pick only one, basically. Whatever. All right. So again, we're really just using the 5e tools variant or layout here as a way to take a look at that, right? And so, all right. So here are the features related to the stuff. So it looks like they just plainly print them out, which is fine by me. And we'll say, just leave a forthcoming on that one. So let's say, so I just quickly want to see. I have no idea how legible the chat is. I had an idea with the scroll. The overlay is all kinds of fucked up. We'll work on it later. I just wanted to throw something together so I could get this stream going. Been meaning to stream like mapping and stuff over time, and there were a few times where I thought I would do it and then I didn't have the overlay. And so I knew I had to get that overlay done just so that I would stop having that excuse. So that's what I did. And that's where we are now. All right, so if we're going to think about subclasses, I guess first we should... Like, we don't need to translate this information over, per se. And it probably wouldn't hurt to... try and preview some stuff. Can I do I know I can do like a page half break or whatever. How did we do that before? Under Marshall feats. Column. Okay. Okay. So these will be how we do our features for now. We'll think about how to describe them more later. So it's a weird. We'll probably change the style a little bit later. Okay, so let's do. All right, let's do that. This is going to end up being like page 6 or something. All right. Eventually, I'm going to have to do that automatically. I forget how to do that on this website. So we can quickly add the breathed in sin feature. And then we can do the sanguine catharsis feature. What up, Lucy? Yeah, it kind of works out. I'm still getting used to some of the formatting. Obviously, I gotta pretty it up eventually with more stuff, but I think overall this is gonna work out. Okay, so okay, roguish archetype, by the way. So I would say second level. This is where we can start talking a little bit about the ancestral sin stuff. Oh. Didn't do that in the right time. Ancestral sins. All right, so for this one, we're basically going to say say that you so your fate becomes irreversibly entwined with that of your ancestors. You now carry their unmistakable burden and more of their forgotten power awakens within you. Say, and through guilt and shame, more of their forgotten power awakens with you. You may select a... Sometimes I did stuff like that, like with the conversion I was working on for a short time in Risk of Rain 2. I had this idea that it was reconstituent was the idea of that was the name of the mod. It might still be on the website somewhere. Reconstituent? I don't know if that's the only thing. Yeah. I did a bunch of stuff with the description of... I guess it was like items and stuff. Oh yeah, the Striga's gem in all directions. That's like a direct line from the Striga, or yeah, from the Striga, which is pretty funny. Yeah. Obviously, there's a crow item. This is an ancient CM reference that I actually don't think is still active in the game anymore. Forecastle, classic. 14th letter. 14th letter is a banger. Taking damage causes you to explode. Yeah, some of that stuff was a shitpost, but it was pretty good. Grief of All Gods is an epic feature for sure. I wonder who should get that. Should it be some kind of deep, like, epic, edgy cleric? It could be a Blood Knight feature, to be honest. Yeah, you're not wrong about that, Lucy. Not wrong. Ooh, I just remembered I have like a seltzer water that I forgotten that I had in the fridge. I think I do anyway. I'm pretty sure I got 2 of them, and I'm pretty sure I only drank 1 of them. I am gonna get the shit out of that. I'm gonna drink all that shit. Atheist cleric build. Could you imagine? I was thinking there could be a cleric subclass. Well, I don't know, because cleric subclasses don't seem related to gods, which actually seems like a total misfire to me. I guess the idea was that they wanted things to be really... I think, like, this is a Pronago comment. But I think if you just redo the entire Pantheon, you can make clerics a lot more interesting. And so by that I was thinking basically like if clerics had to dedicate themselves to if the deities of the Pantheon had certain commonalities to them that basically allowed you to be a cleric of a certain, I forget what the subclass is for clerics. Domains, right? Cleric domains. So basically if deities had commonalities with which domain that they used, which it maybe is kind of how it already works. then I think basically, yeah, I guess this is more of a problem of the number of domains that you have. But there could be like a domain for the clerics as a subclass where the cleric is selects a domain, rather selects to worship elects to worship a deity that has died, right? So it would be that doesn't mean that they'd be worshiping undead or something, but they would be worshiping a fallen and forgotten and forlorn god. So maybe it would be like the forlorn domain or forgotten domain or something. I think that would be kind of neat, because then you could do something like the grief of all gods, because it's like that could be worked in. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's possible. It's a possibility. Yeah, I know clerics are. It's kind of tricky, right? Because I think clerics are like a mix between a spellcaster and a melee combatant when it comes to combat, like dealing damage. I know they also are support, right? So paladins are like healer, like lighter on healing and heavier on tanking, and maybe heavier on damage dealing when it comes to smiting, but they have to actually smite. They have to be able to smite. So there's that, whereas clerics are they're less likely to be on the front lines, or to the degree that they're less likely to be able to absorb non-stop damage, like, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think there's something there. There's something there. That is basically what's his face, Darix, Alexander's character, believes. So maybe there will be something like that. Okay, so now we've gotten to the point where we can quickly prototype out. We can quickly just dump our ideas for the Blood Knight subclasses. So Blood Knight subclasses. We have the idea of so the one idea that I totally remember for sure is inverting the sin dice paradigm, gain dice for blocking damage. And we know that this one is going to give heavy armor proficiency and plus shields proficiency. Maybe it would be like all at once or over time is fine, because like maybe it's like a feature that you get later. It could be like, because this is level 3. I think by level 3 it's probably fine to do all at once. So never mind. That's fine. Like that's probably like, let's say level 3. Gain dice for attacks blocked. And then like level 6 or whenever the other stuff is, it would be like the first one could be improve magical resistance saving throws, which again would help you block and thus gain more sin dice, right? It would be stuff like that. And then we have supporting allies with sin dice, right? And so level 3, gain dice when nearby ally is attacked. In vision ally, not sure which, is attacked. And then we would say can spend dice when can spend dice to enhance allies, right? Support allies. That would be pretty interesting, because all of a sudden you can do something like, I've gained Should you still get sin dice when you take damage? I think probably. I think that's fine. Yeah, but it's basically like I gained the sin dice from one way or another, and then my ally attacks, and I can give them my spirits, right? So that would be pretty neat. Then there is masochism, which is level 3. Gain dice when dealing damage to enemies. Well, when dealing damage is fine. And then I'm not sure what else you would get for at level 3. That's already a pretty good one. We could... We could go back to one of the other features that you get access to, like Wreathed in Sin, Sanguine Catharsis. We could do I don't know why I can't deselect. We could do something like that, where we could like modify or improve Sanguine Catharsis specifically. Another idea that I had was that each one of your ancestral sins would give you another thing you could spend your dice on that would be unique to that subclass. And so when you have 4 or more or something like that, even if it's not 4 or more actually, even if it was something like, here's what you get when you have, I don't know, something else. That could be kind of interesting. So, by the way, we do have a coffee page. I don't know if you guys knew that, but it's pretty epic. So we're already earning $12 a month minus fees. Check that out. I modified the assassin. I talked about this a little bit earlier, but worth repeating. The assassin is modified a little bit. I was just looking at messages from my brother. So my brother, stylistically speaking, his character for the Ascension to Sazarin campaign we're playing, he wants to be an assassin. That's kind of his whole idea for his character. But mechanistically, the assassin subclass was not very interesting to him. And so I revamped it a little bit. Previously, they get this thing where they deal... I actually don't know how I feel about some of it. Because if you go to the Agent's Alacrity that I've changed, basically you have advantage on attack rolls against any creature that hasn't taken a turn in the combat yet, which I guess I could take that or leave that or maybe like offload that to something later. And obviously any hit you score against a creature that is surprised is an automatic crit. That one is pretty powerful, but it's very niche because surprise doesn't always happen. So it forces the entire gameplay to be a little bit more concerned with I guess you could just say it forces a more conservative and careful playstyle, which doesn't have to be a bad thing, but just means that is something that has to happen for this to occur. Oftentimes, you would be the one to be surprised by the way that things are going, and so it kind of forces you to smarten up if you ever want to use that. So what I added to this was that when another creature begins their turn, you can spend your reaction to take one action. And I was thinking about making that a once per turn thing, but actually you might end up getting something that increases the number of reactions you can get later on. I think that's kind of interesting. But we shall see. I have not looked at monks at all. I don't know if Lucy has looked into what kind of subclass stuff he might want, but the punching is pretty amusing. I just don't know if there's anything else later that comes out that is more epic than punching or, interesting in its own way or whatever. All right, so we were in the middle of rolling out some ideas. So like we clearly have this isn't masochism, this is sadism. Maybe there could be a masochism. I think the masochism would be something like level 3 gain double dice when taking damage, right? That could be kind of interesting. He gets more punches and can punch with higher interesting. Of course. He just continues to punch. I see. Okay. Double dice when taking damage. I think these are four pretty interesting options. Only one of them radically changes everything because it removes remove previous. Although honestly, it doesn't even have to. Hey, what's going on, One-Eyed Saint? Welcome to the stream. I was just thinking, the Blood Knight is about using the Sin dice. That's really what separates it from a lot of the other melee martial classes. And so rather than only invert it, which would mean removing the previous mechanic for gaining Sin dice every time you take damage, I think this makes the most sense, right? Like, just leave it as it is. But you also get it for attacks blocked. So you can choose to kit your... I mean, the only thing that would be risky there is that does it make the calculations of the player playing as the Blood Knight to now always want the... Do they always then want to roll with heavy armor and shields? So maybe you don't get the proficiencies, but you don't lose out on taking damage. And I was also just thinking that we could still make it kind of interesting where if, as part of the subclass, you get those proficiencies later on in level, that could be kind of neat. And then on top of it, you could go for, like, instead of gaining double dice when taking damage, this is something that we were thinking about for the masochism subclass, but maybe the subclass, this could still happen for that subclass, but that could also be a generic feat you get as a Blood Knight, which would still mean that you want, like, you still get the behavior when you block the attack, but you still want to be attacked and take damage because you still get more Sin dice that way. Anyway, that's just a thought. But, all right. I think with these ideas, like... Okay. I'm kind of playing up a different angle. I mean, I'm a sucker for the idea that you can redeem the evils of one's past, even if they're not your specific evils, but they're actually your ancestral evils. That's basically the thematic we're playing with the Blood Knight. So I'm kind of thinking that what we could do here is we could say, here's the subclasses, but like actually these are your attempt to atone for your ancestry's failings in the past. So that would basically mean that, like, your supporting subclass, your ancestors were selfish and only looked out for themselves, and maybe they had avarice as a common sort of character flaw and stuff like that. So I think that could be pretty neat, actually. That could be pretty sick. So I only have... I'm going to stay with that for now, and we're just going to write out a brief treatment for the supporting subclass. And I guess we might call it avarice or something like that. I'll think about it. I was thinking about naming them after the 7 deadly sins, in which case this would just be greed or... Wait, hold on, I'm actually blanking now. Is it envy or is it greed? I think it's envy, okay. So... you know, it might be in that situation where we're talking about, like, maybe we do lean into that. The 7 deadly sins, they're pretty archetypal. Wrath would probably be... See, the problem is that if you're supposed to be atoning for your sins, then it makes sense to atone for envy via the supporting class. But, like, atoning for wrath kind of sounds like it would be... What are you doing? Turning the other cheek, and that's what you get for taking damage? Or are you becoming the fortress? Because I was almost thinking of calling the one related to extra damage attacks blocked to give you a Sin dice. I was almost thinking of calling that one the fortress, but seven deadly subclasses. Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I guess you could do that. Like, thematically speaking, I mean, I don't know if we're going to have 7 different subclasses. We could. I actually don't. How many subclasses do the average class have? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's 9 here, but I don't know if that's always how it is. I had the Warlock open. Yeah, it looks like it's. I mean, from my sample of. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, it seems like there's 9 for each one. Why are 2 more not shown? What the fuck? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 for the bard. Whoa. I'm on 2014 as well, so. Oh, I see. So it kind of varies. All right. I guess we could go for 7, and then we can think about like what other deadly sins could there be if we were adding 3 more. That's fine. Just start asking, "Hey Jesus, would you tell me? What's up, kid? Find my MySpace, brother." We got to add channel emotes, but I think on YouTube the only way you can do that is if you join the channel, and I can't. I need like 2,000 subscribers on this channel to do that or something crazy. So pump up that sub count, boys. That's the only way we're going to put dogs in the chat as an emoji you can use. What a ridiculous world. Or you can join our Discord server, and if you do that, then you can use the dog emoji right there. It's fine. Either way, whatever you guys want. Okay, Lucy also sent the subclass. He wants to use the Shadow subclass. Hey, that's just from a naming perspective, without looking at it at all. I'll add it to my things to look at list. That's great. Checks out. Time to make 1993. Great idea. Excellent move. Yeah, you can join the Discord. Currently, we have 6 people already with the active game, but we might end up. There was another guy who was interested in joining as a player. That I think for that we would probably need to just host a different game, but we can probably do something like that. I know some people like, what is it, the DM Lair? He plays every 2 weeks, which probably allows him to do way more games. So. Yeah. Every Saturday we play the current one. So if you want to watch the actual plays, we got them on YouTube and the playlists and the streams or whatever. But we also are going to go live with the next one pretty soon. We don't have any fancy overlay or anything. We don't have webcams for everybody. I could put myself on webcam. I don't know if that would be very useful though. All right, so. Did we ever figure out which country code had eh? No results matched eh. How am I supposed to eh? Oh, Western Sahara, okay. I kept wondering what that flag was. I reckon you might not have known either. You probably just searched in the emoji chat. Estonia. No. No, I recognize the Estonia flag. As a little game sometimes, when I'm reading hltv.org comments for Counter-Strike competitive play, I will occasionally just... I'll scroll through the comments and I'll see, oh, I know that flag, and I guess the flag. Kind of like I guess colors in Cosmonarchy, I guess the flag. And then I mouse over it, and it's the right flag most of the time. So I can't actually tell you what the Estonia flag looks like. I could probably pick it out of a lineup. So that's just some more very useful information I have in my head. Okay. So let's just quickly write a treatment for the Envy class. So we'll say Envy subclass. Blood Knight subclass. Turkmenistan. See? Now you're really getting into the spirit. If my brother were here right now and he saw that, he would groan because I do that to him all the time. Like we were walking to a grocery store and I once said, Grass, stand. He was not amused, but he was amused, if you know what I mean. I was pretty advanced with it. Australia. True. Okay, so we are going to say that there are... How does the 5e tools again look at this? Let's take a look. Let's go to... Oh, there we go. I don't know why I had to do that like that. So here's the road. So you do this, and then you do... I'm seeing 3rd, 9th, 13th, and 17th, but I don't know if that's actually how the advancement typically worked. I don't know why that's there. We can delete that. Okay. Canada versus Emus. I feel like Australia is the perfect map for many whatever scenario. You could definitely... That could actually be a map crap at some point. Make a scenario out of Australia. And, you know, you could use the whole map, or you could, like, do a cutaway, you know? Just cut out, like, just one part of it or something, you know? Could be good. All right, so we were thinking about... Let me take a look at the Artificer. Oh, wait, no. I remember now. So you actually have to look at the subclasses. We go to subclasses, and we go to Alchemist, for example. So level 3, 5, 9, 13, 15, 17. There's actually a decent amount on this. It seems to vary depending on which thing you're after. Like, Hexblade does 6, 10, 14 only. Undying does 6, 10... That's it? Maybe I never finished adding all the Undying stuff. But... no, I think... Yeah, this is 14th level, so this is just... I have to do that. And then this is... I think that's it. Okay, so yeah, you get 6, 10, 14, which is like the other one. So maybe there's like... The idea behind the original design was that each subclass gives you a feature at the same time as the other subclasses, but the subclass features and the number of them vary on the class it is. So a rogue will have a varying amount of class stuff compared to the... Yeah. Rogue would have one subclass, or say all of the rogue subclasses give you features at the same time, but the rogue subclasses give you features at a different time compared to like the warlock subclasses, and a different number of them as well. So we're going to say that your ancestors were a covetous people. Without respect. Respect is probably the wrong word, but I'm going to use it here. Without respect for their own accomplishments. It's also possible that maybe some of the subclasses could be redemptive while other subclasses are not. So maybe some subclasses lean into the sin, whereas other ones go away from it. But I don't know. So we'll say your subclass grants you features at... Let me see here. And then again at, and we'll decide. Then again at 6th, 11th, and, well, let's take a look at what we already have in here. 6 is free, 11 is free. 14 and 18 are free, but we'll deal with that. We'll say that's it for now. We'll think about adding more later. Yeah, I guess it doesn't have to be a vow of difference. Like, thinking about it, you could be jealous of the this sounds really weird, but you could be envious of the pain that your allies are enduring. But it doesn't really, I'm trying to think about if there's like a reasonable thing that you could do to explain why the Blood Knight is using his sin dice or her sin dice to assist in the battle of the... Like, if they're envious, why would they use their own resources for somebody else? You know what I mean? So... But we'll think about that later. For now, I'll just kind of leave it vague, and we can always fill that kind of thing in. All right, so we have... Yeah, I just realized that there's not really any difference in putting the asterisks in here because of the header, so I didn't need to do that. Okay. Finite subclass. So, something like that. Okay, so at 3rd level, when... I wonder if you could then, instead of this being only your allies, I wonder if this could be any other creature taking damage. But that does make it a little bit too ubiquitous, I think. I don't know. I think you'd flood the market with sin dice at that point. So that's why I was thinking it should be specifically your allies. But that's fine. Those are the ones you'd theoretically be the closest to, right? Your party members. So we'll say at 3rd level, when you... What would you say? When you... When an allied creature within your sight takes damage, is attacked, right? Or what's the verbiage for every time you take damage? Yeah. So we'll say every time an allied creature within your sight takes damage, you gain a sin die. Additionally, you can spend your sin dice to augment your ally. So we would say additionally you can spend your sin dice, so I granting them ancestral focus, spirit. Maybe as you level up, you're going to be able to give them more of your Vengeful Vortex features. I think that could be kind of interesting. So by default, you can only give them Ancestral Focus, but that's the attack add to attack roll kind of thing. So that's kind of interesting, right? Okay, so we know that. So I'm thinking Wrath probably should be the sadism one. But let me think here. So there's gluttony, which we could pivot for masochism. We could make it be that like you enjoy like absorbing as much of the suffering or agony as possible, right? Stuff like that. The fortress one, I'm really not 100% sure. See if we can maybe get some inspiration from seeing a description here. I wonder if you could consider sloth. Would that actually be one? I don't know. Is sloth the one where you just don't take any? You're just like, you cannot hurt me. I'm too lazy to be. I don't know if sloth could be translated very well. Sloth doesn't seem like, by definition, it doesn't really feel like it would be a force that would exert itself upon the world. I guess maybe you could do something like, it could be a debuffer, and it would be like, I disenchant, I disrupt the enemy by lulling them into a hypnotic rhythm or something. I don't know. Slowing enemies, like the opposite of hasting, right? Yeah. Yeah, I guess pride might end up being the one that is the masochism. It's like, I can take the hits. I'm that good, that kind of thing. I'm able to, or whatever. Wrath for sadism, pride for masochism. But that does it kind of stops us from. Like maybe greed could be the one that's the fortress because it's like greedily conserving its powers or something. I don't know. Anyway. For now, we'll do Wrath is the sadism angle. And we'll say... Let me quickly check something about the rogue. Huh, it doesn't actually say anything about getting more features. That's really weird. Oh, whatever. Again, we could always tweak it. We're not laying down... and we're not setting anything in stone right now. So I was talking a little bit about this at the beginning, Kian. My thought right now is that I kind of want to get into the idea or into the... I kind of want to try to make the setup for... Okay, so what I want to do is I want to be able to make production quality, like saleable adventures eventually. That's like my aspiration later on. And for now, I'm just kind of getting my feet wet with the idea of the adventures. And so maybe it'll go somewhere, maybe it won't. It will flesh out another part of Isindasor, so it's going to be a net positive. But yeah, the concept that I had was that basically, and I'm going to tie it into another idea that I've had. We can talk a little bit more about that as soon as I finish writing this stuff down and taking a quick break to go get my other drink. But yeah, the plan that I have right now is basically get my feet wet with adventure design, try to figure out how to do something that would last somewhere between 3 and 4 sessions for a low level party. The idea of like designing it to be somewhat flexible in terms of how difficult it could be. So there's like specific levers I expect the director or DM or whatever to pull if they are of interest. Like if they're trying to kit it out for a level 3 party instead of a level 1 party, then okay, here's like an area you can easily change stuff to make it more challenging. But also like I would expect people to do all sorts of things. So that's on them if they don't. But yeah, it's definitely me practicing tabletop dev, and I'm sure I could and probably will end up using whatever I make in another context. But for now, that's what I got. Oh, hey, look, my chat seems to have broken. The fuck? How did that happen? Oh. I'm guessing it's some very subtle color change and that my thing isn't working anymore for the chroma key. I don't know why it wouldn't be, though. The fuck? Dude, when did that break, anyway? What the hell? Dude, what? Seriously. It's like totally fine if I actually click on something. It shows it again, right? But then it blocks the thing with that. It is related to the chroma key, though. Okay. I'm going to quickly identify which hex color the thing is, and then we'll see about that, and I will do my best to fix it. Homie. Let's go ahead and block it there. All right. Hmm. I don't quite know about that one. All right. It's not really super important. Let me go ahead and do this to reset the scaling, and then now this is what they call jank. It was working. It probably didn't look very good, but it was working at one point. All right. That is the very high-tech solution we were rolling with for now. At the very least, it worked. We'll figure it out later. All right. So for this, we had you gain a sin die whenever you deal damage to a creature. Every time you witness a creature die, maybe instead of this, it would just be you gain an extra sin die when killing a creature. When you deliver the killing blow to a creature. I think that's like fairly thematic, right? And then probably at level 4, we would try to give you something that would be a bit more... at level 4, we would try to give you an extra use for your Vengeful Vortex, like building on that or whatever, so that you can use your Sin Dice in another way. So, yeah, that's pretty neat, in my opinion. Okay, so... there we go. Okay, I shall return, and when I do, I will be armed with a drink, as well as some more water, because I'm basically out. And then we will be doing some of that adventure prep. So prepare thyselves for such a thing. And let me just go ahead and... oh, I guess I can keep this stuff open for now. But I will move it into another file. And I will mark the progress on Blood Knight as done. And I will be RB. All right, I have returned. Returneth. Trying to not let the nonsense there bother me. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick look at other adventures that, like, if I just run a search for D&D adventure, what are we going to find out? Some free D&D adventures. Five E Tools has the official adventures. Okay. Adventures. Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that Lost Mine of Phandelver was technically considered an adventure, but I guess that makes sense. Adventure for 4 to 5 characters at first level. Characters will advance to 5th level. Oh, okay. That's a lot. That's way more than 4 sessions. I wonder about that. Yeah, okay. I don't know if we need... I know this one is like, everybody has apparently played that one. I have not, so I don't know. Ah, Curse of Strahd. Okay, so this one's way... I thought that Curse of Strahd was like 50 sessions or something crazy. 10 sessions maybe, max? Or min? Characters who are at least 3rd level, okay. And they have a... That's interesting. They have a mini adventure for 1st level. That's already kind of neat as an idea. Interesting. Okay, they have a... One of the things that I'm definitely going to be tripping up over a little bit is when I look at adventures that give you access to, like, an entire wilderness. Like, I guess I just have to trust Like what I'm reading here, when you have open access to the road and you're expected to travel all over the place and stuff. What I'm reading here is that this adventure is kind of like a module that exists in an area that gives you stuff you can do, and that the players can just be like, nah, never mind, and walk the other way. Um, so that's kind of funny. You wouldn't really want to. Obviously, I'm familiar with the term railroading. You wouldn't really want to railroad it per se. Phew, that seltzer is sharp when it comes out of the fridge. All right, let's try. What do we got here? Murders. We could do something like that, but well, okay. Before I even think about like mechanistically, what does another adventure look like? I have a couple of things that I want to outline. I guess for now we can do. So let's see here. We'll call this a section starting adventures, which is fine. We are going to say hmm. Okay. So thematically speaking, what I'm looking for when it comes to adventure is the idea that the adventure that I want to achieve here is more or less, right? Like I'm looking for entry level, right? So low level characters where you are expected to be able to kind of work out the kinks of your new character, be like, oh, okay, this is how these rules work. This is how this, I've picked a homebrew race that's very different than D&D races, or I've picked a class that's different, or a subclass that's different, or whatever, and we've got all these different mechanics going on, and so there you go. That's something that you got. I feel like that's a like an interesting yeah, I think that's an interesting angle for it. So let's say that I've had this idea that there would be an island as part of a Syndosaur, maybe off the coast somewhere, that was recently a large deposit of valuable and vital resources for various war efforts were just discovered. And so there would be like kind of a mad dash. You know what I mean? So I feel like stuff like that is pretty open to different things. So my thinking is that maybe the players would forge a connection with one of the mercenary recruiters or whatever through this adventure. They would basically like sort out a local problem of like some local sabotage. So maybe it would be more than mercenaries. It would be like, hmm, say the party arrives at Vioranza. Well, I guess we could say Port Arog, actually. Port Arog. Just south of... Just south of the Halfsmith city of Vioranza. Right, we'll say... So again, I want to take a look here at... What do we got? We go back here. There's like a big old description of... Oh, this is many months, so maybe we don't want to do that one. Okay. I'm looking for adventures that are like much... What is the term for adventures that don't take 8 years to play? I'm just thinking of like 4 sessions. You know what I mean? I'm not thinking of something that's like super significant like that. The Tortle. Yeah, I've heard of one shots, but it's wild. Oh, this is related to Tomb of Annihilation, which is 11th level or higher. Yeah, I don't know. Well, campaign to me sounds longer, right? So anyway, starting adventure is fine. That's fine. The stuff that I'm seeing here looks like it's way more like it seems correct, more correct in this context, right? So if we have... This is straight up just a 2-hour adventure, right? So okay, get it free. Let's see. Digital format. Check it. Oh, I have to do checkout. Oh boy. Is there no preview? Can I not just preview it? Quick preview. The fuck is this? How am I... Is this a PDF for ants? Jesus. Some preview that is. Whatever. I didn't even have to validate my email or anything, so that's fine. But that was dumb. That's what it was. It's just like, what the fuck, dude? Okay. A nice relaxing stop in the small town of Easting to restock your equipment, eat one of the famous lunches at the Dragon Horse Inn, and rest a little bit before going further into the Western Heartlands for adventure. Ah, okay, dwarves. Of course, it all comes back to dwarves. Okay. Some live in the darkness of their minds until one day, all they know is sorrow. I'm not reading that. Okay, so was there any other useful info at the top? No, it doesn't look like it. Evening business. Wait, hold on. I got it. Ah, okay. So I like the idea of having area information. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Party of adventurers are enthralled by the opportunities here in the Western Heartlands for exploring and hopefully filling their backpacks with some coin. That's not where you put coin. The party is elected to stay the night in the Dragon Horse Inn to recuperate from their journey before they head on to Erebor, where they hope to find gainful adventure awaiting them. Okay. The Tolkien or Warhammer variety. I don't even know what Warhammer dwarves are, dude. Wow, lunch specials table. All right. I don't know. I haven't really decided how I want to do dwarves. Like elves, as you guys have found out, not the most trustworthy folk. At least the ones that are in the city. City elves, you know? Can't trust them. Arbor elves, maybe. But like, whatever we end up calling the high elves, those motherfuckers. Magic has gone to their heads. Yeah, I don't think they'd be quite like that. All right. Let's see. I guess I'd probably be more like the Tolkien dwarves. I was waiting for those comments to come in. Yeah, prone to dragon sickness, as they call it. So if we take another look at the stuff here, they give you the party arrival section, Dragon Horse Inn, which is just a description of the tavern. That goes for a little bit here. You can listen to rumors, yeah, that makes sense. They are actually innocent this time. Interesting. Okay. So my thinking is basically that if we take a quick look, so Vyransa is a half-smith city, and the half-smiths and the dwarves. Well, the dwarves have forged a pact with the King of the Wastes for the time being. And the half-smiths have kind of been like caught up in that pact. The devil camps are more or less an occupational force representing the fiends that lurk in the south. And the port city here is essentially a an option, a method of militaries from this position to navigate towards Amen Isle. Is sort of what I'm thinking. And Amen Isle is going to be that island that I was thinking about for the perspective, for the purpose of having all of those extra resources, right? So my thinking here is that the fiends end up raiding Port Arag, and they've nabbed some of the goodies from that position, right? Yeah, so I'm thinking that they've nabbed they've definitely nabbed the goodies. They've got like important gear that supplies of some kind that this next batch of soldiers can't journey without. And they're going to be considering what to do next, and then the party is conveniently there to witness the end of the crime. So, they've come to the scene of the crime at the perfect opportunity to potentially lend a hand, and that this um, this would be an opportunity to fight some of the more interesting enemies that you can fight in Isindasor, but also you could forge a strong relationship of merit with the captain here and the mercenary commander, basically the recruiter, and he might decide to extend you an offer for more, for more of a sellsword, right? And I think that would be kind of interesting because I had planned to design this sort of like self-contained isle for my my father wants to play and my brother wants to play. If my father's playing, he's also playing. That's sort of like a pact we have, and he might get his girlfriend to play as well. So that wouldn't be a streamed game, but that would be one of those things where like, yeah, maybe we throw that in there as an option. So this could be the adventure that they end up doing on the mainland, and by the end of it, they could decide, hey, you know, we're going to do this much stuff, and, basically they could play through this adventure. So that's my thinking for now. Okay, I feel like that's a little bit cleaner. Now we know a little bit more. Do they have spell check in this? I don't really think so. Huh? I was trying to remember if Palisade was 1L or 2. It was 1L. Oh, yeah. Okay, so we have our basic idea for the opening kind of role playing that you're going to be able to do. I probably have to sort some of this stuff out a little bit differently. I like the general idea of stuff like this, right? It's like they explain a bunch of this stuff. Hmm. Yeah. Okay. So what I basically want out of this, I do want the flexibility of them coming in at night and then sleeping and then waking up and having more information, or coming in during the day and then immediately setting out to go find their own information. Um, I guess that would basically mean that like their Clenties would be sending out a tracker set, right? So say a band of trackers will be dispatched to, we'll just say, trackers will be dispatched to identify where the miscreant, the thieves, may have camped for the evening. If if the party does not accompany the trackers, return in the morning with having sustained light casualties, with at least one prisoner taken. Hmm. Maybe we could do like a rollable table or something. Yeah, I think that's pretty neat. All right. So we send out the trackers. The party can join them, but they will be bushwhacked. Hey, what's up, Balethal? Going pretty well so far. I was able to start working on the Blood Knight subclass stuff. I can't remember how to... Oh yeah, I can do this. You gonna get bushwhacked. Oh yeah, it looks like the Homebrew should be visited. Yeah, you can look through here for the stuff. So down on page 4, a whopping page 4, if you want to check out the Blood Knight stuff. The subclasses are handled on page 5. I haven't done too much of it, as you can see here, but if you end up taking a look at that, I'll go ahead and drop a link in the chat. It seems many of you are wondering about that witness thing. I can't remember if camouflage is spelled with an A. Oh, camouflage. Camouflaged. Is that really? Camouflage. Fucking French. Camouflage. Okay. Oh, there's a different style. Oh, yeah. I don't know any of that. Hmm. Why is that a thing? Pink. Fucking pink, mate. Right, yeah. I feel like that would definitely, oh, excuse me, add up a little bit. I mean, getting 2 sin dice when you kill a creature is pretty big. You can really start to stack them up at that point. So, I think that's pretty neat. If I remember correctly, it goes up to 1d8 at level 4. Yeah, that's right. Yes, he does. Yeah, I had kind of mused on that at the very beginning of the stream when I was working on the Blood Knight, how like the aspects of the class that have been used so far have been things like the hit dice, like the HP pool, and the starting gear, and not really the sin dice themselves, you know. Um, so I actually did make an experimental mechanistic change, which is that rather than have the um, here, I'll scroll up and find it. So for the Vengeful Vortex, Ancestral Focus. Oh, it says if successfully, which is a typo on my end. Where are we at? Ancestral Focus now gives you a damage roll increase as well. So it's like whatever you roll with that 1d6 will be added to your damage as if you are successful in the attack roll. And then I changed the 3 or more from Ultimate Vengeance, it was called, to Ultimate Grit, where you can roll, you can basically get actual healing instead of temporary HP, which it's reduced, right? It's only half of whatever the result is, whereas the temporary HP is the full result. I think that's still enough of a disparity to make it so that those are interesting decisions to make, but there might be some argument that where it's like it's always better to take the real healing and not the temp healing, but I don't know. Right, yeah. Well, also, yeah, I guess the other thing is that even the combats have sometimes been pretty long in the sense of time passed, but not necessarily in the sense of rounds taken. And yeah, even though you have the highest HP pool of the whole party, it's still not enough that I can have people attack you infinitely. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. Kind of interesting. But anyway, the my thinking right now is that we'll see how the changes to the Sin Dice really do if they do anything, but I feel like with no source of healing, right? The only healing you have is the Paladin's Lay on Hands. So like he's spent 4 of it and he's got 1 left in case somebody goes down. But that's it. I mean, that and healing potions. So that also kind of contributes, you know what I mean? But anyway, that's just kind of neither here nor there for now. Yeah. And so that definitely contributes. All right. So yeah, I was just building out this idea for an adventure. I was also looking at some existing adventures that are out there, and I like the idea that there is basically a primer and then a description of like how many characters and how long it can be and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess we should say it is expected to take hours to complete. Yeah. This days before the Quicksilver Mercenary Guild is meant to depart. Yeah, I think that's probably reasonable. Yeah. Yeah. So my basic idea here is that so my basic concept right now for this adventure is that you would start off arriving at the port city of Arog, right? And you've gone there for one reason or another. Maybe you've arrived there by boat, maybe you've arrived there by land, but the harbor will be smoking because a ship has been set ablaze and will require time to be repaired. and fiends are running off, spilling out into the woods, the ugly, shattered woods that have surrounded the port city. And you meet with the commander of the mercenary guild, and he offers to comp your rooms, and he's like, "So, you want to know more about this situation? I suggest you pledge your sword to helping us, or whatever." And he's like open to you helping him out, more or less. And regardless of what the party does, there's going to be a team of trackers that is dispatched. I'm thinking it'll be a team of 3 trackers. Right. Okay. And then, you might change the number of trackers that go dispatched if the party decides to go with them immediately. So it doesn't look like we managed to get to any mapping today, but that's fine because we're kind of just outlining what we want to do with this. I think in most cases, the first session of this adventure would be role playing with the commander of the mercenaries and talking, perhaps exploring the town. Although they'd definitely be more right. We got to maybe write that stuff in. Say, if the players choose to to explore the city's streets, they will be greeted with, what would you say, suspicious faces, gazes, and distrusting. The commoners will not be trusting of outsiders, especially after their that was attacked only moments ago. Useless rumors, enchanting yet entirely inaccurate rumors will be rife among the populace. So the dock workers, some will have less more grounded descriptions of the cell. Right. So we would say the decide what the marauders should be and the complexion of the forces of the fiendish forces. As the sun sets, after the sun sets, trackers are to be dispatched to identify where the thieves may have camped for the night. If the party is not among them, the final count of the trackers is 3. You can roll 1d6, which is the result below. If the party joins the trackers, an ambush awaits them. Okay. Further investigation of the surrounding area will lead to Okay, so we have like I think the first session of the average playthrough of this content would be presumably something like talking with the commander, maybe exploring some of the city or investigating some of that stuff, and otherwise, like surveying the damage, interviewing the dock workers, whatever. And then deciding whether or not to go on to this with the trackers. So I think that could be fine. That could be interesting. And then let's see. After that, if you go with the trackers, I think your session probably ends after you get the one combat uh, with the ambush, and you can choose to investigate the campsite some more. Maybe there's like a patrol will be returning to the campsite approximately, what do you say, shortly after the party sets eyes on it, which could be intercepted if the party is feeling feisty. Yeah, something like that, right? So there's like a second combat option there that doesn't involve just suiciding at the camp. Anyway, stuff like that, and then you'd probably return back, upon returning to the Towering Tale Inn, the party will... Well, I guess we would say, upon returning to Port Arag, party will debrief Entities and be encouraged to enjoy a fine meal at the Towering Tale Inn before they rest for the evening. I think that's probably it for the first session. So again, like second session would be, I think that it makes sense for the second session to be more about like active action against the active action against the fiends. There might be like a subsequent raid that occurs on another day or something that the party could also step in and stop. Really, I guess the question is, do they end up going to the devil camp and actively like raiding it to recover their supplies? Because that's where I would like them to go, and that sounds like something where it's like, if the first session is them figuring out that there's like a smaller camp in a clearing here, and the second session is identifying the devil camp itself and then working out a plan to attack it or infiltrating it, some more combat there, then like maybe the third session would be something like fully clearing the devil camp of the supplies that they need, and the fourth session would be like taking the recovered supplies and fighting their way out of the devil camp and going back to the port city. Or it could be something like first session is arrival and acquisition of knowledge about the camp. Second session is camp and then infiltration of the devil camp. Third session is exfiltration of the devil camp with the supplies. And the fourth session would be like defending the town from an assault by the devil camp. That way the devil camp stays alive, stays intact. Because I don't think the party is actually going to be equipped to fully defeat it. That would be a bit of a stretch. But they can frustrate it and get the fiends to attack the city a little bit more frontally without the sabotage. And then in doing so, the party can prove their mettle to... what's his name? Clenties. Okay. I think that's a pretty good one. So we'll say Session 2... Session 3 and Session 4, defending the Port Arag from retribution. To say infiltration of the devil camp, securing supplies and exfiltrating the devil camp, discovering and infiltrating the devil camp. Yeah, I think this is pretty good. Conclusion. Okay. That's probably what we'll end up doing. So I think like what we've described so far is pretty much a rough draft of what you would want to do in the first session. And then like you can kind of bleed Session 2 and Session 3 together if you wanted to run a truncated version of this. And then Session 4 would be the big fight where like the commander of the devil camp comes to punch. All right. I think that's a pretty good stopping point for the stream. It is pretty late after all. I will be out of here, and I'll try to do this maybe twice a week as far as the streams go. Of course, I'll probably work on tweaking it and writing more stuff in here and all that over time. But yeah, once again, join the Discord server if you like. Donate on the coffee page if you want access to all the adventure stuff when it's done, and if you want to support the creation of it. And stay tuned on Saturday. We're going to have our actual play. So we'll see you then for that. GG's.